candy shop.
I taste just like candy.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to Ask for Candy, where we talk about healing, self-care, love, sex, relationships, and what it takes to be amazing on the daily. Who I am is Candace Harper, lovecoach.com. Y'all know me. You come around every week, and my purpose with this podcast is to create healthy romantic relationships all around the world through self-love, soul connections, and sweetness. But before we get to that, we like to call out our people. So normally we're with Celebrity Magazine. My Bryan of Celebrity Magazine is celebrating his wife's birthday today. Happy birthday, Sasha, on the day that I'm actually recording this. If it's another day, then it ain't her birthday no more. So my Bryan is not with me tonight because he took his wife out. Hopefully he got her some jewelry, some flowers, some good stuff for her birthday. Normally, we're live on social media every Wednesday night at 7 o'clock, but not tonight. Tonight, we're playing a rerun as I am recording this very podcast because I do not like for you to have to miss a week. So also, I want you to remember to subscribe if you haven't already on Anchor, iTunes, Spotify, iHeartRadio, wherever you normally download podcasts. I do a new show every week talking about different things around love and sex and dating, soul connection, sweetness, all that good Ask for Candy stuff. I'm going to tell you right now, I haven't been drinking, but this is going to be a very boozy-like podcast because I am worn out. Those of you who've been listening know I started a new matchmaking job and I had got an influx of new clients, and I'm spending the next couple of weeks just getting to know all these different people from different walks of life, different ages, different genders, different everything. And so I'm worn out. Mama's worn out. I've been having Zoom meetings already. I got a bunch of Zoom meetings. I got one right after I record this. Got a bunch of them tomorrow. And I'm not complaining because you guys know it's my zone of genius and I love it. Also, don't forget you can email me, askforcandypodcast@gmail.com, to leave comments, ask questions, and those questions will be answered in a later broadcast. And lastly, with me as always these days is my German Shepherd Tucker, who you know at some point might make some noise during the course of this podcast. He was just barking a little while ago because I think there was somebody walking around outside. And he likes to bark, he likes to fart, he likes to make all kinds of noises and disrupt the podcast. But, you know, he's part of the show now, so it's quite all right. So for those of you who are tuning in for the first time, for almost 9 years, I have been a relationship coach and a workshop facilitator. And you can now go on to mywellbeing.com if you want to work with me one-on-one. I do a really great coaching program that incorporates a lot of different modalities, my own curriculum. I also do some of the work by Byron Katie. For sessions, I do hypnotherapy, rapid transformational therapy by Marissa Peer, which I'm trained in. I also do EFT, which I have certification in, EFT tapping meditation. And then, like I said, I have my own curriculum. And if you want to transform anything around your love life, your relationship with yourself, and I'll talk more about that later, what I do in the healing circle as well, you want to come work with me. Check me out on mywellbeing.com. I'm also a professional matchmaker with Luma, a luxury matchmaking service that brings high-end singles together to find their perfect love. We're moving on up like the Jeffersons, honey. Those of you who've been listening know that I went from one matchmaking place to another, and this is a much more high-end boutique style type service. So, you know, it's interesting. I actually really love it. It's a lot of fun. And this is me living into my purpose, the purpose of loving myself unconditionally and inspiring others to do the same, using their romantic lives as a portal, an inspiration, a catalyst, if you will, to their highest possible self, because that is what our love life is supposed to be, a catalyst, an inspiration, a motivation to our highest possible self. And so matchmaking, relationship coaching, it's all in my zone of genius. I love it. I love talking to people about their love lives. I love helping them work through their stuff. I love working through my own stuff. I love the conversation. I love deep level conversations and what it all can lead to, because once you start with love, you get to continue with love, and you can end with love as well. And it affects every single area of our lives, right? the best part about what I do is that week to week, I get to grow and learn as I interact with hundreds of people around the most intimate parts of their lives. I get to take people on the journey from caterpillar to butterfly. And that's what it is. It's an evolution from unhappy to their love lives with or their partners to ecstatic. I get to teach people how to get out of their own way and tap into love as a limitless resource. And I know that it's like, oh, she's always talking about love. What is she even talking about? It's just so crazy. It's just so obsessed with love. And I am obsessed with love in so many ways. So ever since I was very, very young, I used to read a lot of romance novels. Especially in my preteen years, always been obsessed with romance and a romantic and a tragic romantic and just loving all of that. And that's one thing. So that's one facet of it all. But what is the biggest, the apex, the most important thing, and why I talk about love all the time is because love to me is a representation and is actually what we sometimes call God or the universe or whatever. To me, that is all synonymous. And I believe that it is the center of our well-being, our health, our abilities, our magic, our human experience. And it is, it is the very meaning of allowance and acceptance. And allowance and acceptance to me are two things that are the magic keys to the kingdom of life. That sounds lofty, doesn't it? Allowance and acceptance. Katie Byron calls it, or Byron Katie calls it, loving what is. Getting out of that fight with reality, allowing life to be what it is, accepting life for what it is. That is what love is. It's not, this desperate thing where we're attached to it and we're trying to force it. And it's not, what we get from other people or what we make other people give us or being good enough in order for someone to approve of us or to validate us, which we often mistake love for because that's what we learn in our families, that if I'm good enough, if I follow the rules well enough, if I achieve high enough, whatever high enough is in your family, it's different for every family. Whatever high enough is for in your relationship, it's different in every relationship, then I am worthy. I'm worthy of your affinity, your affection, and your caring. That's what we think love is. That's the mistake that we make. And that's why we struggle with it so hard, because that's not what it is. Love is allowance and acceptance. It's allowance and acceptance. I allow you to be who you are, and I accept who you are, all that I enjoy, all that I don't enjoy. It's allowance and acceptance. Love is unconditional. It doesn't need to force. It doesn't need to make anybody do anything. It doesn't need to work hard to be worthy enough for it. It doesn't need good enoughness. And knowing that you're enough and allowing other people to be enough is loving yourself and them. So that's my little soapbox moment for tonight. You know how when Bryan's here, we have like definitive parts, definitive lines for our little segments. And tonight, it's just me and the German Shepherd. So, I'm just going to barrel on through with everything that I want to talk about tonight. I'm doing it a little bit off the cuff, which you guys know I don't normally do that. Well, I do. I mean, I write a lot of notes because usually during the course of a week, each week, I'm thinking about a lot of different things. And so I write a lot of notes. So by the time I come here to do the podcast and sit down and talk to you guys, I kind of have fleshed out my thoughts about it. But this week I just couldn't, obviously like things are always going around and around in my head, which is why I do a podcast. But this week I couldn't think of a specific topic. I was like, I feel like I've done everything to death. What else could I talk about? And so, I had to throw some love on it and just be like, you know what? There's a myriad of things. There's an endless amount of facets to love and romance and this dating game that people play and the work that I do and, what people go through as far as this is concerned. And whether you're somebody who has written it off as something that's frivolous and that you don't need to spend your time on, if you have closed down the candy store, if you have decided that love is not going to be for you, maybe you're of a certain age, and you've shut it all down, or you're someone who, like me, no matter what, whether or not you're in a partnership, you love and you get excited about the prospect of love. You love talking about love, or somewhere on that spectrum, somewhere in the middle. You could fall anywhere on that line. Whether you are that type of person, this is a conversation you should be part of, because why not? Love is affecting you, even if you don't think it is, even if you think you've shut yourself down from it. So tonight's topic, should he pay? Should he pay? I was having a welcome meeting with a client today. A welcome meeting is when you first meet a client that you're going to be matching for. And we had a really great conversation. And, she's been out of the dating game for a little bit after a divorce and a couple of relationships that didn't work out. And, I think for a lot of us who, as we're getting older and we're dating, it's like, what are the rules? And I think for younger people too, especially now with, how our culture has changed. And now we have, we're in the age of COVID, and there's so many things that inform our behavior and our etiquette, like how we dress and what people can get away with as far as what's going on with the way they look on the outside, whether it's that they have COVID hair or whatever. We're in a day and age where the old rules and expectations of etiquette don't necessarily apply anymore. And I can tell you why. If you're a traditional person, that might sound like it's not such a good thing. But if you are willing and open to consider the possibility that when the pretenses and the practices of etiquette and all of that stuff get stripped away, it's not that we have to be barbaric with each other, but it does allow an opportunity for authenticity, right? It allows us to show up in our love lives, in our dating lives, in a really authentic way. And I think that because, the state of the world, socially, politically, everything right now is what it is, and so many people are in a state of anxiety, in a state of worry, I think that the new wave of how we navigate all of this is authenticity, like just being real. And that doesn't mean that you have to lay all of your emotional burdens on somebody that you've just met. It doesn't mean that you have to force it or, be in an emotional state that you don't necessarily feel, but you want people to know that you have felt, or, whatever, that thing that we do where it's like either we have to be polite or we have to be rude. And that's not the case. Like there's a middle ground of authenticity where we get to just be real. And specifically, we get to be real around all the shoulds that come up in the dating conversation. We should all over the dating conversation because we have so many shoulds, questions that we ask. Should I, should he, should this, should that, should this be that way? Or we don't even ask it as a question. We just make a decision that this is how things should be. And if they don't do these certain things, then something's wrong with them. So then I have to reject that person. Should. I should do this. They should do that. This is the way it should be. These are the rules of the game. This is how it is. And some of you out there who are very steeped in the moral shame, right and wrong conversation might be thinking, well, that's just not Christian. That's just not kosher, what she's talking about. There are things that people should be doing. People shouldn't be behaving a certain way, and they should be doing other things a certain way. That's the way I was brought up. That's the way we're taught. And there has to be a right or wrong. Yes, there has to be a right or wrong. So yeah, morals and all of that stuff is fine. There's nothing wrong with that. And I'm not trying to take away anybody's morals. But when we're talking about being able to connect with other people with love, our morals and our judgments stand in our way. And morals and judgments are not love. And by that, I mean the morals that we cast onto others. So our choice to have integrity and be what we consider to be moral and to align with that, that's loving. Because that works for us, right? It's very loving if I feel like being compassionate and kind is a moral thing to do. And I feel good about my morals when I do that. But the moment I begin to cast my morals onto someone else, I am no longer being loving. And so a lot of these shoulds that come around the dating game, should, are a big way that we cut off the possibility for love in our dating life. So I wanted to go through some of these and dispel some of them, some of the shoulds that we have, or some of the the questions, the shoulds that come up as a question in our dating life and see what we come up with. Like I said, I didn't pre-think about this. I'm just doing it off the cuff. So you never know what direction it's going to go in. So let's go with the first one. Should he pay? I got asked that question today by a client, and I thought it was a great question to ask because so many of my female clients are alpha women. And by that, I just mean that they're super independent, like attracts like, super independent. They take care of themselves. They're, lone wolves in a lot of ways in that they do everything for themselves. It doesn't mean that other people don't support them in some way. Like I have people around me that support me that, I love and love me. I'm not saying it like that, but there's this thought process that I can do it all. I don't need anybody to help me. And so those are the kind of female clients that I tend to attract. Not all of them are like that, but that's what I attract. And the interesting thing about that, and I include myself in this, is that you can be a very independent alpha type woman and still want the old, and it's in our biology, the old alpha type male who is the caretaker and, plans things, takes charge, doesn't necessarily ask, just, lays it out there, is confident in himself. Usually that's the type of man that an independent alpha woman wants. But meanwhile, our actions don't align with wanting that. So this client mentioned to me that in a lot of occasions and situations, she's gone ahead and paid. And you can just imagine, like you're sitting in a restaurant with someone, you're on a date, and the check comes. And there's that thing that starts to happen in your brain where it's like, is he going to pay? Is he going to pay? Is he going to pay? Should I pay? Should I offer to pay? Should I offer to pay the tip? That thing that we do to ourselves, that nerve-wracking thing that we do to ourselves, right? And, I'm sure he, depending on the kind of guy he is, goes through a similar thing. Like, is it expected that I pay? Women are so independent now. If I do pay, am I going to seem like I'm being misogynistic? Or maybe I don't want to pay. Is she expecting me to pay? If she's expecting me to pay, maybe she's trying to use me. Maybe she's a gold digger. Like, it's crazy making what we do to ourselves around the should he pay? And so that was her question to me. So I've been out of the dating game for a little while and, should he pay? Like, what are some things that you're going to be able to help me and coach me around when it comes to going on these dates? Because I don't know how to be with it. And so my advice to her is this, and to everyone and myself included, we have to get clear about what it is that we want in a relationship, right? Get clear about what we're creating, what the vision is, and not just make our list of requirements of the other person, but what do I want the energy and the dynamics of my relationship to be like? Now, I know that in order to get into a relationship for me, I would have to be with someone who is fun-loving, doesn't take themselves too seriously, but is confident enough to just be truthful and authentic about things. And that's what would mesh with my personality, because that's who I am. I'm very truthful in a compassionate way. I like for things to just be what they are, say what is so, what is true. I'm not a mind reader. I don't expect anyone to read my mind. I like flat, open conversation. I like it when we don't have to pretend or put on airs. I do think that it's important to be considerate of other people and loving towards other people, but I don't, whoever I'm with, they would have to be somebody who just gets that we have to be able to say whatever's on our mind and not take it personally and not fight about it, trust each other, that the things that we say and the things that we communicate are coming from a place of love. That's what I know, what I envision for a relationship that I'm in. And in knowing that I can use that to inform how I interact with people and whether in those initial dates, that's what I'm feeling. And that's the direction that things are going in. And if I say what I want is a man who is a caretaker, not meaning that I want to never have to contribute financially and I just want him to take care of me while I sit back and eat bonbons. That's not it. That's not the desire for them to pay. what it is that I would want a man where it's not even a question. Like, and the things that I do for him, it's not even a question of whether I should or not, or if I'm not sitting there worried about if I do too much, am I going to be taken advantage of? What would work for me is somebody who doesn't even, that's not even in their will. Like, they're not even thinking in those terms. It's that I'm here with you, I'm having a great time, and I'm here 100%, I'm all in. So if that means that I'm paying for something because I want us to experience it, food, travel, trip, whatever we're doing, or it's that I, go out of my way to be very chivalrous because I want to make sure you have a good time and feel special. Someone who's, for me, doesn't even consider that like a going out of his way. He doesn't even consider that like I'm doing something, so now I got to get something back. Because that's not how I approach it, right? So I say all of that to say, when you're really clear about what it is and what you want a dynamic to be with somebody, then you don't have to focus on the minutia, like a question of should he pay? There's no rules around that. Every couple is different. And if you are compatible with each other, the energy that you bring, the dynamic that you bring, that's what's going to match up. So yeah, if what you want is somebody who is there and, is committed to having fun and willing to pull out their wallet just because he values the both of you having fun, then yeah, I wouldn't say he should pay, but that's the natural thing that's going to happen because that's what he values. You ask a man about his money and you ask him what he puts his discretionary income towards. And if he says, I value good times with people I care about, I value, having a wonderful romantic time. And so I don't mind putting my money towards that. And that's the kind of man that you want to be with. Then the answer is yes. But if in your mind you're like, well, I'm not that kind of woman that it matters to me. It doesn't matter to me whether he pays, whether he does certain chivalrous things or any of that. I feel very strong. I want him to know that I'm in charge as well and I'm making decisions as well and that, he doesn't have to come out of his wallet and all of that. Then there's a man for you that will be perfect for you, cap for every bottle. And it's fine for you to pay. So we get so caught up in what should or should not happen rather than what is it that you're trying to create? What is it that you want? What is it? What is the dynamic? What is the energy that you want? If I'm on a date with someone knowing what my long-term vision is, and I have dated a couple people for a period of time where, there was somebody I dated, I would say almost 2 years ago, that there was just such a vibe of like every little thing that he did, there was a payment expected. And that's how he was with the other women in his life, with his daughters, with his mother. And, I felt that energy of like, well, I did this thing for you. Now you owe me. And it wasn't necessarily sexual owe me, but it was like, you need to prove to me that my doing something for you was worth it. And so for me, that does not belong in my relationship sphere. That doesn't work for me. I don't want to be in a long-term relationship with somebody where it's like we're horse trading, right? So that's the thing that you want to be paying attention to. Like when I'm getting to know you early on, do I feel the vision that I'm trying to create coming into fruition? Do I feel the energy that I'm trying to create coming into fruition? Do I feel the energy that I create for myself? Are we vibing on the same frequency? That's what the question is. And so the should he pay question is just so minuscule when it comes to what is the big picture? What is it that we're trying to get to here? And can we get on the same page about it? And with all of these shoulds, I'm going to go down the list with other ones. Are we able to just openly talk about these things? Because I think no matter what the dynamic of your relationship and what you choose as far as gender roles or who you want to be in the relationship or what works for you best or what the things you like to do, what is going to have your relationship be sustainable is the ability to communicate openly. And I know that that's not some new revelation, but I think people say that all the time and then end up in relationships where they have to be guarded and hide certain things in order to manipulate their partner. Right. And, that might be why I'm not in a partnership right now, because I feel like that's a very common thing. Let me say something different than what I feel so that I can manipulate my partner in one way or another and have them behave in a certain way, whatever that might be. I don't have a specific example for that right now, but it might come to me. Anyway, so yeah, that's my answer to the should he pay question. What is it you're trying to create? What is the energy that you want? And if the energy that you want would be a situation where him paying is a no-brainer, then align with that and stick to that. Because a guy who has a problem with that is not the guy for you. And he's not wrong. He's not wrong. A guy who doesn't want to pay for a date, he's not wrong. I know that that's the old tradition. And that's, we've been told that men are supposed to want to. But there are women out there who don't feel that way. And those are the women for them. For the guys who don't want to pay, right? Everybody should be aligned with who they want to be with. So there is no rule around that. The next one, should I call? So I feel like this question comes up a lot around new dates, first dates. And a lot of times with my matchmaking clients, they'll go on a date and then it's like the aftermath. So do I call him? Usually it's the woman who's questioning, but then men have all these rules around how long they want to wait to call and all of that stuff. And when it comes to that, again, what are you looking to create? What is the clear vision of what a great relationship is for you? Is it one where you do have to maneuver and manipulate and try to figure out the best way to handle logistics so that you can get the best possible outcome? Or do you want to be in a relationship where I get to express myself, what I truly want? And either it's going to be met with acceptance and excitement and love and engagement, or it's going to be met with rejection. But either way, I'm here to show up like myself. So I got to be able to listen to my intuition as far as that's concerned. If I've had a great time with somebody and the energy was there and, I feel like there was a lot of compatibility and my gut is saying, call that person. I got to call that person. Right? And I know there's all kinds of rules around, you want to make a man wait, you want to let him chase you and and all that other stuff. But I think that when we get too mired into that, it gets to be sort of a frustrating, manipulative effort. And it doesn't really have to be an effort. All it really has to be is authentic. If I'm willing to express myself and not be attached to how you respond to it, if I'm willing to give you a call and not be attached to whether you even answer, and if you do answer, that you need to be a certain way, that you need to be excited that I called, that you need to say things that I want you to say if I call. If I'm calling, I'm doing you a big favor. Look at me calling. And now you have to respond in a way that works for me. It has to be what I envisioned it to be. That's how we screw that up. If your gut tells you, let me call this person, be in the moment. Be in the moment and see what happens. It may turn out to be a great conversation. You may get their voicemail. They may be in the middle of something and can't really talk to you. It's a willingness to just allow yourself to not attach to what it needs to be. So the question of should I call is me coming from a low vibrational place of, because if I call and it goes wrong and it's not what I want it to be, then I'm going to feel a certain way and I'm going to feel really bad after I've called, and then it's going to go downhill from there. And I say that with such conviction because I've been in that position many times, because I was attached to what the the call outcome was going to be. So should I call? Shouldn't I call? Should I call? Shouldn't I call? And then I call, and what I was hoping for was excitement to talk to me, or an invitation to go on a date, or, something that would have felt like it was worthwhile for me to call. And if I didn't get that, then the disappointment starts to build. Then the second guessing of myself starts to build. Then the wondering if this person really likes me starts to build. Then the getting nervous because I haven't heard back from them starts to get bigger. Because I was attached to the outcome of calling. And that's why I was asking the question of whether I should call in the first place. The question of should I call, no matter what your gender, should always be, and here I am shoulding on you, the question of should I call, the answer is, if you want to call, call. And don't have any expectations around what will happen with that call. Just express yourself in the way that you want to express yourself and see what happens. And the great thing about that as well is when we're not attached, we leave that person room to surprise us, to show up in ways that we never expected, and to not feel pressure to be anything but who they want to be. And when people are in a space of not feeling pressure to be anything but who they want to be, then we get the best of them. Now, if I call you and you're not that into me and you're not that interested, I get the clarity of knowing that you are not on board for my ride. And so I get to decide whether I want to focus on other things or let it go or move on, or whether I want to just lean back and see if that will change. Maybe it will, maybe it won't, without attachment to it. But there's a lot of opportunity in that for me to branch out and see what else is possible if I just go ahead and get the clarity that I need. If I call, you're not interested in my call, that's okay. That's totally fine, because you might have a million other things on your mind and it has nothing to do with me. Or you may just not be interested. And that has nothing to do with me either. It's none of my business. Because if you're telling me that you're not for me, then thank you. That's a blessing. That's a thank you. And not even in a snarky kind of, that kind of way that we act like we don't care. Because nobody wants to be rejected, but that's because we frame rejection as some sort of commentary on who we are, and we make ourselves feel lesser. And rejection also triggers our own feelings of already not thinking that we're enough. Right? So anytime anybody rejects you, they are doing you the favor of triggering your healing. Because if you walk away from me and you don't want me, if you look at this and you see me, you see who I am and you don't want it, and you walk away, you're doing me the biggest favor you could do. Because don't stick around me if you don't like me. If you don't want to be here, I don't want you to stick around. I don't want you faking it. I don't want you forcing it. I want you to be here because you 100% want to be here. Right? So that all comes out of should I call? Hell yeah. If you want to call, call. Just don't be attached to anything. The next one is, should I sleep with him or her? Well, I don't think that men ask this question of themselves too much. And let me not speak for men. I don't have my Bryan here to back this up. But for the most part, percentage-wise, I think in the early days, men don't necessarily wonder whether they should have sex with someone. They just do or don't, and whatever feelings come out of that. Generally speaking, I think that men are very, they're very flat and simple in the way that they navigate the sex thing. And sometimes sex can have them not so interested anymore, not because the sex wasn't good, but because that's maybe as far as their conquest interests were. That's all they wanted, and so then there's no reason to pursue and spend money and chase after if that's all that they had on their mind. We know that happens. We're all grown-ups. Let's stop trying to act like, oh, he slept with me, he owes me something emotionally. Not the case. Obviously, it's not good if somebody lies to you in order to sleep with you. That's not so good. That's pretty manipulative. But the expectation that someone owes you a relationship or owes you any further contact or owes you anything after you sleep with them is like putting yourself in a hell of your own making, right? But when you're asking yourself, should I sleep with them? Is it time? Are we ready? Is it rushing the relationship? All of that good stuff. Number one, always go back to what I was originally talking about, the vision that you're trying to create, right? So, what is it that you want this relationship to look like and be like and feel like? If you want, depending on how long you've been dating, if you want spontaneity and things like that to be an element of your relationship, then that can inform whether you feel like sleeping with someone is a good idea or not. You really want to listen to your gut, because your gut will tell you everything. Don't listen to dating coaches and relationship coaches that tell you the rules for things and how you should behave and what you should do. Listen to your intuition, because you have all of your own answers. They're already right there for you. And that's where we trip up, is that we don't listen to ourselves. We don't listen to what's really going on inside of us. And so, with women in particular, I feel like, we get in these, and I have gotten in relationships that were only really meant to be sexual relationships. But because I have a strong personality, or I am good at prolonging someone in my life, should I choose to do that, then, I end up in these entanglements where that person is not really wanting a relationship, but, maybe I'm likable enough, or the sex is good and fun enough that they stick around, but emotionally they're not really wanting anything long term. Or it could be me in that position. It's like when we try to force it and finagle it and, make the manipulative decision. Should I not? Is this the right time? Like the Steve Harvey waiting 90 days because he's just going to want it so bad that he might even propose to you before those 90 days. That sort of manipulative way of navigating it, it goes back to the authenticity thing. It's inauthentic. And, so what ends up happening from that is a lot of attachment and hope and expectation. And so if you're wondering whether you should sleep with somebody, listen to what your gut says about it. Can I sleep with this person and just have it be an expression of my affection and affinity for that person without it needing to be full-on attachment? And that's even if you're in a relationship with someone already. Like every time you have sex with that person, it's like, can this just be what it is in this moment? Can I just enjoy having sex with this person and not hook all of my emotions and my self-worth and my decisions about the relationship and my choices and, everything that's going to come after that on this sex that I'm going to have with this person? Can I just be affectionate in this moment? Can I just enjoy this moment and then move on to whatever is the next moment? And likely or likely not with that person, whatever it might be. It's that willingness to take that risk. So when you're asking yourself that question, you got to say to your gut, like, yeah, can I just enjoy it? If I can just enjoy it, then hell yeah. I should sleep with that person. Why not? Because I can just enjoy it without attachment and expectation. If I'm honest with myself and my gut says to me, you know what, you're not there yet. You're going to want to attach to this person. You're going to want to get emotionally involved, and it's going to be way serious. So maybe it might not be a good idea. Be honest with yourself. And it's okay no matter where you are. It's just knowing where you are in your journey. And we can't ever know where we are if we're not straight up and honest with ourselves about what's going on with us. And sometimes we really like someone and we sleep with them because we think that they're going to like us. And that's even into our older age. We think that that's something that's just for young people. It's not. Sometimes we engage physically because we think that it's going to ignite something in the relationship, or we engage physically and then we think that it's supposed to have ignited something in the relationship. And so when we're honest with ourselves that we attach our emotions to it, and that's how we know we navigate, and we're not in a place in our journey where we can do it without that kind of attachment, then our gut's going to say, don't do it, because you know you're going to put yourself in a place where you're overthinking it and you're driving yourself crazy. Right? You always want to listen to yourself. Clearly, the theme of this show is listen to your gut, listen to your intuition, listen to what your inner knowing is telling you. Right? Should I introduce him or her to my kids? Now, I'm not a parent, so this is, clearly a parenting question. But what I would want to offer parents as someone who has dated parents before and being on the other side of it with not having kids, but also being someone who loves kids and is, happy to date people who have kids, because I think that they're a great addition to any relationship. Like, why not have an already family? Obviously, you have to take into account your kids and their emotions and their attachments and all of that stuff. But it always goes back to what your inner knowing is telling you. And it always goes back to how honest and upfront you are able to be with your children. So if you have kids that are pretty young, there's only a certain level of sharing about your adult feelings that they can even process, right? So obviously with a younger child, care has to be taken. Like, how authentic can I be with this child? Kids can't process adult feelings, right? So if we're laying all of our stuff on them and how we feel about a person and, what the expectation might be that we want our kids to like this person as well, we could really put our kids in not such a great situation. But, with older children, when you can be more authentic, be authentic. Be real about where you are and what it means to be a single mom or dad and dating. They're going to have to be adults at some point, and they're going to have to understand all of this stuff. So if they're of a certain age where they can process it, of an older age, they can process certain truths and information about that, you're needing to have companionship, then base it on whether you can be authentic with them or not. If you're dating someone and you don't feel like you can be authentic about that person with your children, then probably you should not introduce that person to your children. But your gut has to tell you that, right? Like, you have to be able to listen to yourself over whether the reason that you're not telling your children about this person is because your gut is like, this is not really somebody who's going to be sticking around. This is not going to be somebody who they can have a relationship with because they're not family minded. And they're not part of the vision that I'm trying to create. And your kids, when you're creating your ideal relationship vision, your kids are very much part of that vision, right? So, what does your gut say about that? Does this person really have the energy and the vibration and the ways that fit into this vision that I'm creating with my kids? Your gut will tell you. Your gut will tell you. When you're trying to force it and you're not listening to your gut and you want to make a family happen, or you're feeling like, oh, I got to do this because my kids need a father or my kids need a mother figure or whatever, that's when you get into trouble. When you're going by your shoulds and the rules of tradition and what other people are telling you rather than what your gut is really saying. I have a vision in mind, and this is what I want my family to be, my love partnership along with my children. And I see this person bringing that energy and bringing that. And you know what? There are no guarantees that person is the person. And yes, it can be very hurtful to introduce someone to your children. And I am only imagining it, but I am, I am someone's child and have been in families. So, I can on a lot of levels imagine what kids can go through when they are, their parents are in and out of relationships. And I work with a lot of adults who grew up with that and dealt with that and what that does to adults. And I coach a lot of adults who grew up with parents who had multiple relationships and were in and out of relationships and things like that. So that's not to say that I don't get the gravity of having someone come into your life and then leave your life and what that means as far as your kids are concerned. But that doesn't mean that you get to risk any less in order to have what it is that you want as far as your love life is concerned. So if your gut is telling you that this person is great and that they're going to fit into this vision that you want to create for you and your kids, listen to your gut and know that there's no guarantees. And if your kids are old enough, that might be something that you can share with them as well. That no one is guaranteed to stay in our life. That's a lesson that everybody needs to know. Because we have this expectation that people should be guaranteed, especially when we, as we're growing up. But that is a big part of life. People die, they leave, they, get kidnapped. All kinds of things happen that can cause what we thought was going to happen with another person to not happen. And if your kids are old enough, then obviously, it's okay for them to be of an understanding that relationships don't last. And if you're single, they already know that anyway. But don't make it such a thing where you're trying so hard to force a perfect person into their lives, under the guise of protecting them, and then end up in a situation where you're trying to force something on behalf of not wanting to F them up, when that's exactly what you'll be doing if you're not living authentically. And the best thing that a parent can do for a child is to live in their own authentic fulfillment, happiness, and truth, to be able to listen to their own gut and know that they are enough and know that they can be upfront and honest. That is the best inspiration and example that any parent can set for a child. That I can be true to myself, I can be loving to myself, and so much so that I can overflow and be loving to you, loving to the people that come in and out of my life, and I can be truthful and authentic about how I feel about them, whether it works out or not. That's the biggest gift you can give any child, anybody in your life, anybody that you're interacting with. So that's my thoughts on that. Should I tell them I have herpes or any other STDs, things that you cannot get rid of? I mean, obviously, that is a yes. That is 100% a yes. And the reason I use herpes in particular is because that's one of those ones that lies dormant. Sometimes people don't know they have it, but a lot of times people don't tell. They don't say that they have it. They know they have it. And so, it's like 1 in 4 people have herpes. And a lot of that has to do with the fact that people don't disclose. And it's a difficult thing to disclose something like that. Any sort of, I don't want to call it terminal, but permanent sexual infection. Nobody wants to disclose that because there's so much stigma around it. But so many people have them because there's so much stigma around it. So in as much as it might be a difficult conversation, in as much as it might be a embarrassing conversation, it's a conversation that 100% needs to be had with anybody that you're going to have sexual intercourse with. Because you really don't know what their medical history is and, what kinds of things that certain STDs might do to them. You don't know, there's just too much left to chance. If you were to give somebody a terminal STD and, the question of should you, it is somewhat of a moral question because you're putting someone else's life and health and wellness in danger. I can concede to, there being definitely a moral issue about the should or shouldn't within that question. But, it's also it goes back to the authenticity as well. Like, do you want to be in a relationship with someone where you have something to hide, something like that, something, so life affecting as that is? So, yeah, that's always a yes. It's always a yes to disclose something that would majorly affect anyone that you're getting involved with, that they would be affected by it. It would affect their life. They get to have an opportunity to decide whether that's something that they want to take on or take the risk of. I have a very close friend who is HIV positive, and she, takes all the therapies and things like that. And, they have therapies for HIV that you don't have to pass it to your partner if you're doing it all correctly. And so, she has a great relationship, got married, and is, living happily in a relationship with someone who is not HIV positive, but was willing to overlook it for the feelings that they had between them. And, she took the responsible route by making sure that they knew what they were getting into. You always want to make sure you let people know what they're getting into. You don't want to surprise people with things that are major, that will majorly affect their lives, like major debt or really bad credit. Things like that, they really will affect another person's life. And so they require full disclosure because that's authentic. And that's the right thing to do. And the way to get to a point where you can do that is to heal the shame around it. So it's easy to have a lot of shame around having a terminal STD. It's easy to have a lot of shame around having a mountain of debt, having a lot of shame around a low credit score, any of those things that would affect a partnership if you were to get into it. We tell ourselves a shame story. And the shame story is part of why we also perpetuate having those things, because we feel so shameful about them. So I think that's where to look. If the question is, should I tell them? And I don't want to tell them because I'm shaming myself and I feel so bad about it. That's where the healing needs to begin. Because the answer is always yes. If you're going to get into a relationship with someone, you should always disclose anything that's going to majorly affect their well-being, their finances, their life, and who they are as a person. If you can do that, you got to do that. There's just, you can not do it, but then is it worth the stress? Is it worth what it can possibly do to the relationship? Should I tell them how I really feel about a bad habit? So this is an interesting one because, we want to be accepting and allowing, right? But there's going to be things about the way another person behaves when we're getting into relationships with people. There's going to be things about the way they behave that we may not actually love, that aren't our favorite thing, that we don't necessarily want them to be doing, right? And the thing about bad habits is that they are very personal to people, and no one quits a bad habit unless they want to. They might fake it for a while, like let's say cigarette smoking. I remember being in a relationship and my partner did not want me to smoke. And so I would quit for like short periods of time. But when I used to smoke, I haven't smoked in 14 years, but when I used to smoke, so I'd quit for a short period of time and then I would start again because I didn't really want to quit. I was just quitting on behalf of my partner not wanting me to do it. So it's okay to let a partner know or someone you're dating that you don't like a habit of theirs. But if you're letting them know with the hope that they're going to break the habit or stop the habit or change the habit because you're letting them know, then you are putting yourself in a position of like banging your head against a wall. Because it's not going to work unless that's what they really want to do, unless they really want to stop. I was very much in love with a heavy weed smoker. I don't have anything against smoking weed unless it's a problem. So someone who has to wake and bake and be high all the time in order to navigate life, to get through. I mean, if you have a chronic pain, if you have a chronic illness or something like that, that's one thing. But if you don't, if it's actually a mental physical addiction that you have, then there's going to be certain ways of being in a relationship that aren't going to be great. You're not going to be able to be present for a lot of stuff. And for me, that wasn't part of my vision. It didn't work for me. So I would tell this person I hated that habit. And there was a part of me that hoped that I could change that habit. And if I nagged about it enough or had enough to say about it, he might change it. And, it's like exercise in futility. Let people know how you feel about what they do and say your piece and let it go. Don't be attached to people changing because you'd like for them to change, because you will drive yourself crazy. And that is not love. It's not acceptance. It's not allowance. It's control. And in as much as you might say, oh, well, I can't deal with what it is that they're doing. If that's the case, then you have to walk away if you really can't deal with it. If it's that you're saying you can't deal with it because you want to manipulate them and change, then that's on you. So let me know your shoulds. We're getting almost to the end of the hour. Let me know some of your shoulds. You can email me, askforcandypodcast@gmail.com. I'm going to probably post this on social media if you're ever listening to it on social media, wherever there's comments, because I will come and look at your comments. Let me know some of your shoulds and your should questions. Should I do this? Should I do that? Or things that you think should or should not happen when it comes to relationships. I would love to know what you're talking about as far as shoulds are concerned in your own relationship, in your own life. But ultimately, to wrap it all up, what this all comes down to is that in this day and age, what's more important than anything is our ability to be authentic, our ability to be ourselves, to be fully self-expressed, to say what's on our mind, to share with people in a compassionate and honest way, and in our partnerships, to be able to say what is true, what is there for us, to be able to be honest, and to take ourselves out of the shame story. Just be who you are. Fill yourself up. Know that you're enough so that you can have intimate relationships where you see each other as you are. Don't be so afraid that you're going to be rejected, because as I was saying earlier, rejection is a favor. Don't be so afraid that someone's not going to do the things that you want them to do, because when you're attached to having them do them, you're in manipulation. It's not love. It's not relationship. And that's that. That's that for this, bombastic blasting you with all the things that are on my mind tonight. And I appreciate you. If you've made it this far, I appreciate you for listening. So another way I mentioned earlier to work with me is that I facilitate a weekly Monday healing circle for women everywhere, 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern, every Monday night. And excuse my yawning. I'm so overwhelmed with all these Zoom calls. Anyway, we'll be causing personal transformation when it comes to communication, forgiveness, self-love, mother-daughter relationships, purpose, friendships, just all the tools we need to be as big as we were meant to be. And, we're in collective number 2, our new cycle, which began in September, but you can join at any point. The first class is free. Everybody gets a free orientation class. And, come find out if you want to be a member. Just join us. We have great conversations. It's group coaching. Sometimes, different people are on the hot seat. I do a lot of different modalities, like I mentioned before. We just got off of our month-long doing Byron Katie's The Work, and we're about to move into my forgiveness module, which I teach for about a month. And, it's all about healing and self-love, being enough, peaceful, illuminated, and courageous, and having great relationships. So next week, I'll be back with my broadcasting partner, Solidity Magazine. We'll be live on social media. You can follow us at Ask for Candy Podcast, at Candy Love Coach, and at Solidity Magazine. And shout out to the Ask for Candy Podcast group if you made it this far. Shout out to Armed Radio, who I haven't given a shout out in a long time. Don't forget to subscribe. Solidity Magazine on YouTube. Email me, askforcandypodcast@gmail. And until next time, my people, never forget that you are a love machine. If you ever start to feel like you aren't getting the love you need, just make more. You're a love machine, honey. And then ask for candy. I love you so much. Mwah, mwah, mwah. Thank you so much for being with me. Have a great week, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye now.